All right, so hey guys, Coach Coach Kogzak here. So this morning I played a quick session at lower stakes, and this is a free video, so you guys can see the way I am playing, and maybe compare your game to my game, and maybe see that maybe I'm doing something different, and you can learn something, or you can see that you're playing the same way, and you're a perfect player, and you have nothing to learn. So these are NL10 and NL25 tables. So on the left, we have a heads-up game, and on the right, it's a full table. So I go for delay C-bet on the left, and here I missed everything, but there are also a bunch of draws and ace-high hands who missed everything, so I think it's worth to try a small bluff at the end, only targeting those hands, and with the small sizing, it only has to work out a very small amount of time, and luckily it does. So right away when we see that kind of sizing, which we saw on the left, a min raise, maybe it's a misclick, but generally if people don't make those kind of sizings like min raise or 3x or some kind of non-standard 6+ sizings, I usually mark them as suspicious because it's probably a good sign that they are not regs and they are beginner players. And of course, we can call a pot size bet with a gut shot. If it was only heads up, we would call because our gut shot is alive. But since there's a short stack behind us, he might jam, so we're not guaranteed to see a turn, even though it's a low chance he would jam on ace king 6 board after limb calling preflop. But we still had to fold the gut shot, of course. And here we saw that the opponent on the button, on the left, he made a mini ISO with ace queen suited, so that's interesting to note. That's of course, unless it was a misclick, it's a non-standard sizing, and it's a bit too small for a 6+. You're not gonna get any folds by mini ISOing. So here on the left, if we had like gotcha or something, we could attack this flop, but with only backdoors, it's not good enough for us to bet the flop. But now when the queen comes, if it checks to us, we probably have the best hand, so we will try to take it down right now, and we'll size up a little bit because we want to charge draws, and also we want to get value from hands like pocket tens, pocket jacks, and we are not too worried about being behind. So like pocket aces aren't gonna check call or something, they would probably bet themselves. And on the right, we flop a top pair and some backdoors, so it's good enough for one bet. On the left, of course, we check behind at the end, and unfortunately, we were behind. And here on NL25, we turn to pair. It's kind of a scary board because 2 straights complete, but with position, I think we can still get value and deny equity for flush draws. So we go for turn bet, and we would check back a lot of rivers, but not this one. We make a full house. Again, it's a bit scary because there is flush possible, but we can always bet fold. And with this line, I think we do have some bluffs, so we could get hero called by, maybe like king queen or something. I mean, we do have like ace 10 or some kind of draws that missed, so I think it's worth to value bet at the end. And a blue tag for me generally means a reg. So on the right, we can see that there's a bunch of decent players, but on the left, all these players are unknowns, so I'm assuming they're beginners. So we will play very differently against weak players and against regs. On the left, we're going to play super exploitable because we don't have to balance anything against players against whom we might never play against. But on the right, we will sometimes, if you're playing good players like on the right, we will sometimes have to make moves which are not the most. I mean, they're profitable, but we have to sacrifice some some EV for balance, because we can't always play super exploitative. So here on the right, after everyone checks, I had no plans for bluffing this hand, but now with the turn, since everyone checked, I am assuming they don't have many aces, because if you have like ace 9 on the button, you're probably gonna bet. So I went for the turn bluff, but also I had a live gotcha, so it's we are bluffing with equity. And here on the river, again, I don't really believe they have an ace. I think they have draws, or like 8-9, or maybe a king 8 or something. So since I don't believe they have an ace, I'm going for a second barrel, and it works out pretty nice. Here on the left, everyone checked the flop, and we have a pair and a gut shot, and not a gut shot, sorry, open ender. And since everyone checked, again, they're not gonna, like the guys on the button and cutoff, they're not gonna trap with straights or something. So we're going for a bluff, well, semi bluff, and I size up for an overbet just to get rid of something like ace queen or king 9 or something. So it looks pretty strong from our side, and it's tough for our opponents to call. And if we do get called, we will be bluffing a lot of rivers, because we're blocking a lot of good hands. And yeah, so this is kind of an aggressive line, but you don't have to take it. But it's I think it's pretty profitable here to, instead of just checking down and trying to maybe catch a straight or two pair or another eight. I think we can smell weakness here, and I think we can take the pot down already on the turn. On the right, we flop really nothing, but we do have a bunch of backdoors. We have two backdoor straights, backdoor flush, one overpair. So I think it's worth to go for a bet on the flop. And the turn is pretty bad for us. It gives us a pair, but it completes a bunch of straights, and it doesn't allow us to bluff, so we had to check fold. So we ISO ace jack suited, because it's almost always going to be the best hand. Not a great flop, so we check behind. Here, against weaker players, you should be always betting here. Against regs, you should be careful, because they might do what he is going to do here, so he jams. I'll actually pause for a second. It's a pretty interesting spot. So the reason you want to be careful on the turn against regs is, when you check behind on the flop and you bet the turn, it kind of looks like a delayed c-bet. You're not checking behind pocket aces or ace queen or two pair or something. So you look really weak. You look, when you check behind the flop and bet the turn, you look like you have a hand, which I have. So like a second pair or some kind of draw. In any case, we look like we have a hand that it's going to be tough for us to call on all in, which is true. So we are in a little bit of a risk of getting exploited here, because he can jam pretty loosely, and it's tough for us to call. And also, generally, at least at lower stakes, you should be always folding here. Regs are not going to think that deeply about this spot, but you do have to think that way when you play a bit higher. So here, generally, you should be folding. I just kind of talked myself into calling here, and also thought it would look cool for the video if he has like 8-9. And I thought, I played with this guy before. He's a reg, so maybe he will decide it's a good semi-bluff spot. So I end up calling, and of course I'm I'm wrong. So it's a pretty expensive hero call just for the video, but it's okay. So on the left again, we saw that the player raised the 3x pre-flop, which is not a standard sizing, so we can know for almost sure that he's not a reg. And here we go for a semi bluff with a gut shot on the left after checking, and we had thoughts of barreling if we would get called. And again, against a small sizing, I don't really respect it much, and I don't want to just limp behind and have one of these short stacks jam against me, so I will ISO here, and if one of those short stacks will jam, I'll have to call, but it's better to take control of the hand instead of just being passive. And unfortunately, the button jams, so we're not happy. We're almost always behind, but we're just calling to hope to see like ace king or something. We do have equity, but unfortunately he has pocket aces. So, but I'm still happy with my decision to isolate the weaker player. It just didn't work out this time. So pocket sevens, it's usually a limp, but we are very short, so we will fold the rebuy. So of course we're betting with the set and hoping that we'll see some check calls or check raises. Obviously you never wanna slow play a set in 6+ because the equities run so close that slow playing is pretty dangerous in this game. So queen jack suited, we can raise it. Sometimes we can limp. I usually limp because if we raise it and get jammed on, we can't really call, and then we lose a decent amount of chips, and we don't get to see post flop. Here, again, we don't really flop nothing, but we have a bunch of backdoors, and I don't want to just check fold all my backdoors. And if we get called, it's a good board to bluff. Or here now, after catching a jack, I think we'll have the best hand a decent amount of time, so we want to continue betting. And that's a pretty bad river, of course, because it completes a straight and also gives an ace out there. And turns out it was a bad card for him also, and he did have his beat all the way. But I still like my line, and if he would have, if I hadn't hit my queen and slowed down, I think if I would run multiple street bluff, he had two pair, but it's very tough for him to call multiple streets if it comes like something like an ace or a king, and I continue betting. It's very hard for him to call with just bottom two pair. It's a good hand, but essentially against multiple street bluff, it's only a bluff catcher. Here on the left, we'll go for small sizing and try to steal it. Again, it's because we're playing against weaker players. Against good players, it's a bit risky because we don't have ace king, so it's tough to bluff or semi bluff when you never have the nuts on the board. So for other opponents, it's easy to check raise us and bully us because we're pretty capped. But against weaker players, we can do it. And here we'll be betting our pair and flush draw again, like pretty small. I don't want to bet too big and get check raised. I want to bet sizing, which I can call if I get check raised on the flop. And on the left, we get lucky and river straight. And on the right, we continue betting because we probably don't have the best hand yet, and we want to try to get him to fold like king queen or something. And we get check raised, and he pretty much always has queen 10. There's not much in his range, only queen 10. So we are pretty much dead here, and so you should be folding here. Again, I decided to do something cool for the video, at least try to. So I go for a call here, even though I know he has a straight, because I thought if the board pairs, he will have to, check fold because we have all the like full houses and everything. Not all the full houses, but like we are representing a set or something. So it's pretty tough for him to to check call here if he has a straight, because we're only gonna bluff with a flush draw. And if I would hit a flush, I think I would get called. Might get called because it doesn't seem like we would call such a big check raise with only a flush draw. But this that was my thought process, but that was a mistake. It's not a good play. I mean, we have too little left, and we don't have too many full houses. We don't have kings or jacks. We only have stuff like pocket eights, and maybe not even like king nine. I mean, we're not really calling a check raise with king nine, so it looks like we have some kind of a draw, which we do. So it was a mistake to call the turn, and also just because he has queen 10 doesn't mean he's gonna check the river, so he doesn't care. He's continuing to bet with his straight, which is not a bad play, so we end up folding. But so we try to look sneaky and like try to really outplay the guy, but we just outplayed ourselves. So maybe you can learn from this mistake and not try to do complicated stuff. If you see that you're beat, just fold. So, and on the left, again we isolate the weaker player, and we missed the flop really badly. It's a pretty bad flop, and here I don't see any point in betting. We are not gonna get too many folds by better hands. And here on the river with the jack blocker, we could bluff here. We do have jack 10, and after 3 checks, he's probably pretty weak, but I decided to just check back because he might call us with like pocket 10s or pocket jacks, something. And we end up chopping with jack, king jack. So we isolate again, and we miss the flop really badly again. So we will not be attacking this spot. And the turn gives us a gotcha to the nuts, and against the second check, we are gonna semi-bluff because we might get folds, and also we have live outs for a better straight. But after the board pairs, I think he has a bunch of 2 pairs and sets in his range, so we check behind, and turns out he had the nut straight, so it's a pretty good river for us at the end, because we saved some money by not bluffing, because I do not think he was planning on check folding with the nut straight. So we're running a bunch of bluffs today. When they don't work, they look pretty silly, but I still, with the exception of the jack 6 or jack, I think I had jack 6 suited, where I tried to bluff by calling a check raise on the turn, and with plans of bluffing the river. That was a bad play, but other plays where we got called, I'm pretty happy with. They're still good bluffs even if they don't work out. So on the right, again, it's these small sizings. I don't really believe in them. It's going to be pretty tough for people to call. And also, once the person on our right called the 3x raise, he's not calling with like kings, queens, or ace king, so we don't have to worry about him. And there's a bunch of money in the middle, so it looks like a pretty aggressive line with the ace 10. But again, I just felt weakness, and I felt that guy wouldn't call an all in, and I was right. And if in Holdem, if you would just do this, you get some chips, but in 6+, because everyone posts ante, these aggressive plays can be more profitable. So then you have to work out every single time. And again, on the left, it's pretty similar spot. Against the short stack limps, they're not probably limping good hands, and the 3x ISO is pretty weak, so we end up jamming, and we actually get called by worst hand. So I was happy that I'm at least right about something. But we do lose, even though we were slightly ahead. But at least we made the right decision. So it's a pretty interesting spot on the right. We flop an open ender, but there is a better open ender out there. So 9-10 would be an open ender. So we can't really check raise and stack off because we might be up against a better open ender. We could also bet here. Could also check call. I don't really mind betting, but this way, if we only check call, we get to see a turn card. But if we bet and get raised, we have to check fold. And here, so we turn the nuts and repairs the board. And we decide to go for a pot size bet, even though usually you don't want to do this because when there's a full house possible, and especially if a player bets a pot size bet, you don't really want to go too crazy with your straights when he could be checking back with like queen 6 on the turn, and now he has a full house. But in this spot, I just felt that he's not that strong, and I think also because he's sort of a thinking player, he's not a fish, and also I thought my line doesn't make any sense. Like for him, for his point of view, like I'm not check calling with like a 6-7 on the flop, and now I would be pot sizing. So my line kind of looks like a missed draw, like 9-10 or 10-9 or something. So or 8-9, which is turning into a bluff. So I just sized up, so I look kind of suspicious, hoping for a call, and of course we are folding to any raise. And we do get called, so it worked out for us. I think he had, let's see, yeah, so he made a hero call with the queen jack, which is of course a hand which only beats bluffs. So I think my line of playing the hand kind of weird with the pot size bet at the end, when it looks like I might be bluffing, and it worked out at the end. But again, usually when the board is paired, you don't want to go too crazy with your straights. And if I was playing against unknown player, I probably wouldn't take this line. But I have played with this guy a little bit, so I kind of knew he might call. So we limp pocket aces, hoping for an ISO, hoping for a bunch of ISOs, a bunch of all-ins with our pocket aces. And we do get an ISO, and of course we are jamming. Against weaker players, you could raise like non-all-in with aces and jam the flop. But here it will look super strong if I make it like 25. It's like I would only do this with aces. So jamming looks weaker. We're hoping to stack him again, but he folds. So, alright, yeah, that's the end of the video. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions about the video or coaching or something, feel free to contact me on Discord. I'm Coach Carlos there, or Coach Koiksdog, one of those things. And alright, thanks guys, and hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you on the tables. Bye.